Hello, I'd like to welcome you to this opportunity to take a look at the moon up close through a telescope. The original plan was that we were going to do this observing of the moon from the God's Tower, but unfortunately, current set circumstances, we can't do that. So never mind. Next best thing, I'm going to bring the moon to you so you can see it up close through a telescope. So I put together a little presentation for us, which I thought would be probably a little easier way for us to do this. So let's have a look at the moon. So I'm the president of the Southampton Astronomical Society, and you're going to visit the observatory that is in my garden where I live in Chandler's Ford. I've been interested in astronomy since I was a teenager, so of course that actually wasn't very long ago. And I think the moon is an excellent object for you to start observing. Probably many of you have maybe got a small telescope tucked away at home, it's probably in a cupboard somewhere, you've not used it. And the moon is so easy to find in a small telescope. These days, quite often people put a smartphone attached to the eyepiece, and you'd be amazed what you can do. The moon is there. It's ever so easy for us to see. And that's probably, the sort of thing that we see of the moon. But have we ever seen these amazing craters and detail that we have up close? Probably not. You've probably got that telescope that might be tucked away in a cupboard. Well, today, hopefully, I'm going to give you a little bit of an incentive to think about, maybe if I've got that telescope, I might get it out and I might have a look. Or even if you haven't got a telescope, just look up at the moon the next time and think to yourself, I've seen some of those craters up close. Now, the first thing that we need to do with the moon is we do need to be aware of the fact that its phases changes throughout the month. So on the 5th of June, this is an application called Moon Deluxe, but there's lots of different applications. You can see that the moon is probably going to be, as it says here, 75% full. It'll be rising at 3:30 in the afternoon, and it won't be setting until about 3 a.m. the following morning. So there's lots of apps like this, and you can get the app for your phone as well. So I have this app. In fact, I must confess, I also have this app on my watch as well. But again, there's lots to choose from. Just pick one that works for you. So let's begin by having a visit, first of all, to my observatory. So yes, I've got this little mini dome down in the garden. I must confess there are 3 domes there. I've got 2 either side. You're probably thinking, why do I have a dome? Well, the idea is that I can just set my equipment up and leave it, and then I haven't got to keep taking it in and out because it is a bit heavy. This is my little bit of garden mat here, just as my entrance. So here's my dome, and if we open it up and we have a look inside, I've got this quite large telescope here. It's mounted on this tripod. This particular dome is rather nice. It lifts back to expose just over half of the dome, so there's not a lot of room inside there, which you'll see why I actually control it from my computer. But you see this little small telescope here. At the end of the talk, you'll see how I used it to capture the International Space Station going across the moon. So there is my telescope, and now you've got a chance to see it up close. So this is this is a Celestron. It's known as an 11-inch telescope. Sorry for those of you that work metric, but it's actually known as an 11-inch. The little small telescope here, where the mouse is pointing, that is the finder scope. And then the longer telescope, then it's a little 60mm refractor. That's the one that I use for sort of wide field views, and that's the one I actually use for the transit of the International Space Station across the moon, but say more about that later. Telescope's pointing in this direction so that it's what we call polar aligned, so that it will stay tracking on the moon. And then down here is my camera. Now, if we come round the other side, we're now inside the dome, and we look at it a bit up close. This is the little camera that I'm using. It's a little video camera, and tend to use a video camera so that you can try and get a better view, because you can sort of cut through the Earth's atmosphere a little bit and hopefully see things a little bit better. Now, as I say, my telescope is connected to my computer, and so what I have to do is I say to it, find the moon, which you can see there, so it finds the moon. I then click on this little button here to say go to the moon. It then says to me, do you really want to go? That's just in case I've selected something and I don't really want it to go. And then, as we can see around here, now my telescope, oh, isn't this wonderful, now just moves, and it will now point at the moon for me. Now, obviously, that's rather nice. You don't have to have something like that. I've just got that set up because quite often I look at objects that are a bit hard to find, and then with our light polluted skies, it makes it a bit easier. But for something like the moon, you don't need anything as sophisticated as that, but I'm just showing you how my observatory works. So as I say, I've got my moon here and I found it, and then what I've got is I've then got my camera attached. So this is a live view now of what the camera will see. Sorry for the bit of iPhone shake. I control the camera over here, and then if I whiz over here, and I hopefully nobody got a bit seasick doing that, there's a nice close-up view of the video camera. And you'll also see these large knobs here on the side. These are the focus knobs, but the problem is when you turn those knobs, it moves the image of the moon, and that can make focusing a little bit more difficult. So in actual fact, I've got this lovely little box down here called this mini controller, and then all I have to do is just tap on these little white buttons and it moves the focus in and out. So that just makes life a little bit easier for me. But as you can probably see, it is a tad bit cozy in my dome. There's not much room for me once I've got the telescope in there. But the good thing is that it does the job for me. Now, what we will now do is, so now we're looking at an image of the moon up close. So you can see here, this is just a shot taken with my iPhone, just on my computer, looking at the display. And if you're wondering what this red control pad is over here, you see this north, east, south and west. Well, that just enables me just to move the telescope a little bit without having to nudge it. And it can also can track at different rates here. So that's what this is here. So that just means that I just can move it without having to touch it myself. But that's a nice feature to have. So let's now go and have an actual look at the moon and look at some video images from the moon. And here we go. So this is a live feed from my camera. I say a live feed, and you can start to see some of the amazing detail on the moon. We've got these wonderful craters here, and that's what's really nice about the moon, is that there is just so much to see. You've got these mountains and rills. These things are called seas, although of course there's no water in them. And just look at these craters. You've got a crater within a crater within another crater. All these craters and everything, they all have names. You can get your atlas out and you can find out what they're called. And there is just so much to see on the moon. So we're looking at the top one. We're just going to come down the side. So if we come down a little bit more, here we go. Now look at this. I mean, just look how much there is here to see. You've got these wonderful mountains. you've got here, you've got the craters, you've got another little crater here. You can just spot things. You've got rays coming out here, and just take a moment to have a look at this crater here and notice that you can see the shadow. Now that shadow is going to change. So as you'll see later, when we come back another day later, that shadow might not be there at all. And there's so many different things to look at. You can see why Patrick Moore just spent most of his life just looking at the moon. So now if we come down a little bit more, you can see. Now you'll notice here that this part on the right is bright and this part on the black, and this is black. And this is what we call the terminator. So as the phases of the moon change, you can see different parts will slowly get illuminated. And so whilst it's moving across, you get this effect here. And that's what's called the terminator. And we'll see in a minute just the difference between one day as to what you can see. But I just love just looking at these craters and just thinking, wow, you know, how long ago did something impact the moon and create that crater there? And as we work our way down, we've gone from the top to the bottom. Just look how cratered the bottom of the moon is there. There's just so many of them. And just notice that we've got the terminator there. There's still about half of the moon that we can't see at the moment. These images have been taken over the nights of the 28th and the 29th of May. But just look at all these wonderful craters here. They've all got different sizes. There's small ones. There's little tiny ones with shadows in. There's big ones with like a little mountain inside. There's one here that's got a partial shadow in it. You know, you've got one crater here, and then there's another one cut inside. You can just spend ages. And as I say, with a small telescope, you can have great fun looking at all these objects. And here we go. If we just go down, so we've gone down to the bottom, but now we're just going to the right a little bit, and you can see lots more different. You see, it kind of doesn't change as the same is. There's lots of craters and everything to see. Now, you might notice if you're looking at the video here that it seems to sort of shimmer a bit. And that's because we're looking through the Earth's atmosphere, and that's why you're seeing that shimmering effect. You know, it's not you're thinking, are my eyes deceiving me? No, it's not. Now look, have you spotted those little those little craters there? Look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. What other interesting objects can you spot? Look, there's 1, 2, there's 3 little tiny ones there. Look at that mountain peak, which it looks like popping out of that crater there. And notice that part of that crater is in shadow. Yeah. Then we go over here, we've just got this tiny little craters, big craters. Enjoy. And if we just move across, you'll see that certain parts of the moon, they're not always totally cratered. Obviously, if you go and visit, they really are. But from looking at them from above, you see these maria and you see the seas, and they look flat. But of course, they're not. They are still cratered and so forth, but it's just to us, we can't see them. And if we go in a little more detail, here's some of the rays that are starting to come out. Look at these mountains here. Yeah. Now, if we would come back in a couple of days and have a look at the moon again, we'd see this part of the moon look completely differently. So that's why, you know, even if you don't, you'll never run out effectively of things to look at for the moon. And now we've sort of come round the edge again, and we're going almost back up to the top. And you'll see how bright it is out towards this limb. Yeah, look at this lovely crater here. Yeah, with that tiny little crater inside there. Look at this group of craters here. See these ones here, these craters that are on the terminator? You can hardly see them. But look at the sort of mountain ranges that we've got here. And then out to the edge, notice that we can't see so much detail there because of the way that we are looking at the moon. And as you see, as we come down the terminator, we just come down a little bit more. We've got a little bit more detail that has become visible to us. As I say, all these images that you're looking at, I haven't processed them or anything. I've just captured them with my video camera and obviously my sort of special video camera. But just in case you're wondering, it's not actually that expensive. It's a lot less than what many people would pay for their smartphone. So you don't necessarily think, and in fact, if you've got a camera, or in fact, if you've got an iPhone, you could do this yourself. You can hold the iPhone up to the eyepiece and see what images you might get of the moon. So here we go. We're just coming round that side again, just so you can see that not all areas of the moon look all cratered. You know, this area does look flat, although as I said before, it isn't really flat. And then we've just looped right round to the bottom again, just so that we can see the bottom where the poles are, or the poles at north and south. They are always very heavily cratered. Now, one of the things that, as I say, I mentioned to you is, you know, you can find all these different things to have a look at, and you know, you'll find sort of lines coming off, and if you look at these, many of these things do actually have names. Look at that tiny little crater there, and the rays just coming off of here, and then look at these ridges and rills coming along here. And as I say, come back in a couple of days' time, and it will look a little bit different. So as I said to you, the view does change. So let's have a look at that over the 28th and the 29th of May. So look, this is the image that was taken. So on the right here, this is the image on the 28th of May of the moon. Now look at the image on the same image taken on the 29th. So now we can see that, you see on the 28th, these two craters here, they were visible, but they weren't very bright. Come back a day later and look, now you see we've got more of the moon that is visible. And now we can see these two craters clearly. We can see this area here clearly, and we can see this area coming into view, and this is also now looking a bit brighter. So this is what is nice about the moon, is that it's constantly changing, and you can find, you know, so what you might look at today, you may have to wait several days to actually find something that you want to look at. And with our wonderful weather, which is so unreliable, might take you several, you know, could take you several cycles of the moon before you find an object that you're looking for, because you might not get a clear sky to enable you to find that object. As I say, I don't think you'll ever get disappointed in trying to find things on the moon. Now, probably many of you may have at some time or other seen the International Space Station go across the moon. Sorry, you've seen the International Space Station go across the sky. But did you know that at certain times from certain locations, you can actually watch the International Space Station go across the moon? And that's something that's really quite fun to do. Now, I should point out to you that it's a rare event at your location, but it is an event that happens quite often. But you might have to go somewhere to actually see it. So, you know, if you're waiting, so for example, if I'm waiting to see it in my back garden, I might get 1 or 2 opportunities a year. It depends on its orbit to see it. But if I'm prepared to travel, then I can probably get an opportunity to see it on a not too infrequent basis. Now, I should point out that you will need a telescope or a camera with a very long lens to see it. But if you've got that, so how do you know when the ISS will transit? And the answer to that question is there is a wonderful website called transitfinder.com, and it'll work out your location for you, or you can set a location, and then you put in the dates of when you want to go and try and observe the ISS transit, and then it will come up with a list of observations. Now, I should warn you that it comes up with transits of the sun and the moon. You cannot observe a solar transit without very, very, very special equipment. So please don't try that. But you can observe a transit of the ISS with the moon. And so this is one that I've picked up here. And you can see that the next one is going to be on the 18th of June. It's scheduled for just gone 10:15 in the morning. And it shows you the phase of the moon and the direction it's going to go across the moon, and also how long that is likely to be. That's going to be a pretty tough one, because you, unless you've got some good equipment that will point you right at the moon is probably going to be hard to find. But if you're patient, it can be done, and you can see the International Space Station go across the moon. And I was very patient, and this is a transit that I did. Remember, I showed you that small little telescope, and here it comes. You see it coming across. It's going from left to right there. So what we'll do is let's play that again. This was taken with that little small 60mm refractor that's on top of the big telescope. So just watch again. It's going to come from the right-hand side across the middle. Can you see it? You see that? There he is. You see it just flying across the screen there. There we go. And that's the International Space Station coming across the moon. As I say, I was fortunate enough. I waited a long time. I should warn you that if you want to try and do this, it goes very quickly. It can almost be a blink and you miss it. So my little tip to you is, if you're going to do it, set the video running and then wait and just see. There are some very good apps around that will tell you when the ISS is about to transit, and also show you roughly where it is in the sky, which can be really quite helpful for you to plan when to switch the video on. But don't wait to see it, because if you wait to see it, that will be too late and it will go. But it's a great object just to sit there and watch. So if you've got a little telescope and you know the ISS is going to transit, you don't have to try and video it. You can just watch it, and it's a great thing to see. Failing that, if you've never seen the International Space Station go across, it's a really bright star. You can't miss it in the sky. And how do you know it's the International Space Station? Because hopefully we don't see many at the moment, but it's got no flashing lights. At the moment, the skies are pretty empty of planes, but usually there's always that question. You see a bright light going across the sky at night, and you think, is that a plane? Well, at the moment, of course, there's very few planes flying, particularly around here at Southampton Airport. So there's a really good chance that it's a satellite going across. So that's something else that you might like to think about for the future. But hopefully I have given you a good indication of what you can see on the moon. And as I say, our journey for the moon is over for today. I do hope that you have enjoyed it. And hopefully at some time in the future, when things get back to normal, we'll be able to have that observing session on the tower, God's tower, and I will look forward to seeing you all then. And I really would like to thank you all very much for joining us today. Thank you, and goodbye.
Hi, my name is Mia. I'm the Acting Programme Lead at A-Space Arts. I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and if you can spare a few pennies for GHT, please follow the link in the description below to donate to our PayPal account. The money you donate will help support the organisation through this difficult time and allow us to continue developing content like this to keep us all entertained at home. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here and hitting subscribe, and you can watch more quality content from GHT by clicking here. Thanks again everybody, and stay safe.